Hey everybody, welcome back to Super Comic Fun Time, the show where we talk about comic books and more. Today I went to go see Infinity War, but before I get into that, I just want you to know that this is going to be sort of a rambling, free association. I'm going to talk about what I remember and like what it might mean. If you haven't seen the movie, you don't want to watch this broadcast. So I will say it's really, really great. There's this meme that's been going around for like a month now. Avengers Infinity War is the biggest crossover in history, and then somebody will like post something else that's sometimes humorous. The most humorous one I've seen so far was, oh yeah, it's the most ambitious crossover in history. So yeah, the funniest one I've seen so far is like Kanye West and President Trump. And yeah, most of them aren't that funny, but when I saw the movie, it's very ambitious. I think it lives up to the hype. So then if you haven't seen the movie, go away. Go away. I will talk a little bit about news first. Now, I did talk about this the last time I did a vlog. I was going to go through this. This book is pretty good. I'll just give people time to like shut off the stream if they have. You know, I love the artwork in it, but the story in this first book, it's just okay. It's not great. Like Kamandi blew me away, and of course the difference between this book and Kamandi is this book actually takes place in prehistoric times, whereas Kamandi takes place after it's a nuclear holocaust, and it both of these kind of draw, like this book seems to draw more from 2001 A Space Odyssey, whereas Kamandi draws more from, at least as far as I've read in that book, draws more from Planet of the Apes. So, you know, lots of beautiful artwork. I really enjoyed the artwork. The story itself was just pretty much like an origin story. Moonchild and Devil Dinosaur become friends, and it just tells that story. And it does look, the nice thing about this one is it has the covers for, I don't know how many issues there were of this. I'm guessing not too many, but it does give like several of the covers, and they do look good. Like I know there's already a omnibus of this, so I might get that at some point when I have caught up on some of my reading. So yeah, a good book. That's all I'm going to say about that, unless I get like the second issue and it's like it amazes me further. Okay, so let's get into it. What is now? One of the things I said in my car video that I haven't said that. I wrote that in the description, so I'm thinking I talked about it. So after the movie, I went out and I made a video in my car. Sometime after I made it, then I went to like looking for old books in old bookstores, used bookstores and stuff. And then I realized that I wasn't wearing my headphones when I made the video, and I was holding my phone, and there's a good chance I covered up the microphone. So I didn't even listen to it. I just decided to do this. So one of the things I talked about in my post-movie experiences, there's this woman online named Tamara Chambers, and she does a couple of shows for Channel Awesome. One is called Tamara's Never Seen, because she led the most sheltered childhood, it seems, when it comes to movies, and a lot of movies that a lot of people have seen and love. She hadn't seen, and you know, I think she explained once why that is. And really, at this point, she's been doing the show for a couple of years now, and it you know, it's not really a big deal why she hasn't seen it. You just kind of watch it for her reactions and stuff. And then she started doing, with current movies opening, Tamara just saw. So after she went to see Infinity War, she talked about like the tears welling up, crying over a superhero movie, and she posted some pictures. And you know, when I was, you know, I thought, is this real? But then, like, I was watching the movie, and yeah, it was like there were. I would say after seeing this, Thor is almost too funny, and like. Okay, again, like we're in spoilers, so you've been warned. I'll go ahead and say spoilers several times through, in case anybody joins. But you know, nobody really. I normally have one or two viewers at most. So So yeah, the movie starts right at the end of Thor. Thor, I keep wanting to say Lost World. That was like several years ago. Thor Ragnarok. Like they leave, they think they've made it past the curse of Ragnarok. They've rescued everybody from Asgard, and Hela ends up in hell, and then they're like in their ship, and then the movie ends with them running into Thanos' ship. And this movie begins with all the Asgardians being murdered by Thanos and his crew. So, you're seeing this, and like, yeah, it is like very, very sad. So, like, one of the things I thought I would do during this broadcast is just try to take some major themes of the movie and try to figure out what they were. So, like, even though like there were like just a lot of those kind of heartbreaking themes, there was still a lot of humor too. I would say this is a much more serious movie than Thor Ragnarok, and I do think like Thor Ragnarok was almost a little too over the edge for me. And another thing I will say is like in Thor Ragnarok, there was a Doctor Strange cameo. And for me, it didn't quite work. It just felt shoehorned in. And I think, and I was saying in my video after I saw the movie that I think originally they had a different plan for what the movie was going to be, and Doctor Strange played a different role. And when they changed the movie, they still kept Doctor Strange in, and it just, it just didn't work for me. And I would have to see the movie again, but it just seemed like, oh yeah, zoom, 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 and then like, okay, here's Odin, and like Doctor Strange didn't really have anything to do in that movie. And in this movie, I think all the characters have something to do. It's like it's not quite as focused. Like some characters we kind of lose the focus of, in my opinion. Whereas like in, say, Guardians of the Galaxy last year, like my favorite Marvel movie last year, it seemed like every character got enough time. In this movie, I would say, well, first of all, there's two characters who aren't in this movie, and that is Ant-Man and Hawkeye. They're like the ones who were under too much heat after Civil War, so they just decided to sit this one out. And so they don't get any real time at all except for that mention. And then Black Widow, like, she's always seems to be in with the trio. She's part of the trio of Captain America, the Falcon, and her. I'm trying to think if there's a fourth one in with them, but usually when you see Black Widow, you see Captain America and Falcon not too far behind. So she didn't really have very much of an arc. She gets a little time when Bruce Banner shows up, and so you kind of remember they had this kind of thing in Age of Ultron where she kind of helped the Hulk go to sleep. And so that's, and there's just so many characters, there's so much happening right from the start. So we start where Thor left off, then where do we go? Then we are with Pepper Potts and Tony Stark, and he wants, he's had this dream that they're pregnant. He's like saying, do you ever have a dream where you have to pee in the dream, and then you wake up and you really have to pee? And she goes, yeah, that's a common experience. And she goes, yeah. He goes, yeah, it's like so real. Well, I had a dream that we were pregnant and we're going to have a kid. And she's like, that's just a dream. And then like, she's talking about like he's got his heart cavity with his suit in it, like micro whatever, nanotechnology that can turn into a suit. And he goes, well, you just never know when there's going to be an alien invasion. And then there's an alien invasion, and you get all of this stuff happening. So like, as far as themes of the movie, so like it's interesting. It starts with Tony Stark and Pepper Potts talking about having a baby because Thanos in this movie is he's trying to be a balancing force, he claims. He's completely evil, completely mad, but in his own mind, he's trying to do good. And it's so strange because he's got these 7 sort of, and I guess they're from Infinity. I read Infinity a couple of years ago. I don't remember it that well. I remember I think that's the one where Namor either leads or somehow he gets Thanos's guys to attack Wakanda, and then there's this whole bad blood between T'Challa and Namor after that. So, excuse me, I poured myself a glass of wine like an hour ago, and I haven't even had a sip yet. It's just table wine. So yeah, so you've got them talking about kind of new life, and you've got Pepper just wanting to settle down, and Tony not feeling he can. And then alien invasion happens. That's when, you know, Spider-Man, what's his name? Peter Parker just happens to be on a field trip then. That's kind of an amusing scene. He tells his friend from the movie, like, you know, create a distraction. And the kid goes, he like, without missing a beat. Now, whether he was really panicking or he was really creating a distraction, he goes, oh my God, we're all gonna die. It's an alien invasion. And that's where we get Stan Lee's cameo. And so yeah, I'm kind of like mixing things up. It's very confusing in my mind right now. So Thanos is this balancing force in his own mind, even though he's got these really 7 kind of cruel compatriots. And it's interesting because I was reading one of my books before the movie. I was at Barrique's and having a breakfast sandwich. And this was a sort of ritual to, like, you know, protect yourself. And it talked about like, you know, it just had like these 7 components to it, like strength, something, wrath, fire, and total destruction. It's, if anybody's interested, I'll talk about that later. And yeah, so one of the characters that has the biggest arc is Gamora, Thanos's adopted daughter, and we get to see her when she's a young girl. And for whatever reason, Thanos adopts her practically right away. His motivation isn't explained, or if it is explained, it went over my head. But what Thanos is doing is, like, his own planet, Titan, had issues with overpopulation, and he believed killing half the population dispassionately, just like drawing straws, and, you know, so that way the rich, poor, young, old, it wouldn't matter. It would all be kind of random and evened out. And excuse me, everybody had an equal chance of being killed. And they didn't do it, and apparently Titan fell because of that. Now, that is vastly different from the Titan in the comic books, which is more or less, and Thanos is vastly different too. He's more or less a conqueror until after the Infinity Gauntlet, where he settles down to become a farmer, and he kind of changes, you know, he gets some character growth. And I'm not sure how that character growth, like in between Infinity War and Infinity, where he's kind of a bad guy again, and he's looking for his son, as I recall. Yeah, I'm not sure where that character development, and, you know, it's possible Infinity should just be taken on its own. Like I say, I read it a couple of years ago, and I don't remember it that well. It did, like, have a lot to do with stuff leading into Secret War, like the 2015 Secret War. So yeah, I've got the window open, so there'll probably be some noises. It's that time of year where you can have the window open and go to sleep. I love sleeping with the window open, and not freezing too much, you know, the covers being warm enough, and not having to have the heat on. So yeah, so Thanos, one of the main themes of this movie is balance. And, you know, one of the questions I have is, you know, back in the 70s, there was this idea of a population bomb, and it never materialized. And there's a very good video on YouTube that explains why it never happened. The reason why is because hybrid wheat was created that could grow in harsh conditions. And before even the population bomb was written into a book to panic everybody, this wheat was in India, and it was working, and they were growing, and India was starting to grow more food and being able to export it. So that's why we averted the population bomb. And so in Thanos's mind, you just eliminate 50% of the population. I don't know if he's thinking galactically or universally. I don't know if he's motivated by trauma, like his uh, own home being destroyed because of overpopulation. So he just decides to build a spaceship and quote help other races. But the people he's with, the people he's recruited, are demonic. They're like completely evil. And I do think that is part of the point of the movie, is like Thanos is kind of the devil in a way, but you're supposed to have some sympathy for him. You're supposed to see, oh, maybe he's not a bad guy, but he's a very bad guy. And, you know, in the comic books, he's known as the Mad Titan, and they reference that here. And when you think about it, if you eliminate half the population and you leave a relatively healthy half of a population left, like, they're going to breed and they're going to be back at that same level again. So eliminating half, I mean, like where he took Gamora from, he killed like half the population, including her mom, I guess. And, you know, he talks about how it's a paradise now. Is it? I mean, is it? We don't get to see that. Thanos just tells us that. And apparently Gamora has never felt like going back to her home planet to see for herself. But yeah, so that is one of the issues, is like, you know, we start with Tony Stark wanting to have a baby, dreaming of having a baby, and thinking it's so real. And then all of this stuff happens, and he actually ends up getting sucked into outer space because the space demons come for Doctor Strange's amulet. If you saw Doctor Strange, you know, he has the time gem as his amulet, and that is definitely not in the comic books. But it kind of works for the movies. And I do wish they had done a better Doctor Strange movie, because he's really good in here, you know. And one of the best scenes is like, so Doctor Strange eventually gets kidnapped. You know, there's this big fighting in New York, and Doctor Strange gets kidnapped. And then we get this scene after he's rescued between Tony Stark and Doctor Strange. And, you know, they're both kind of narcissists. We remember from the Doctor Strange movie that, you know, Doctor Strange is like the best surgeon. At the same time, he's motivated by a little bit of fear, because, you know, when he's looking for a case to take, he doesn't want to take one that's going to ruin his success record. And yeah, so then, like, you know, they get into this thing where they get rid of the alien thanks to Spider-Man, because he's watched a lot of movies. And so his pop culture references tend to help out from time to time. Excuse me. And so yeah, so then, you know, you have Stark and Strange, and Strange is saying, you know, I'm not one of you. I'm not going to follow you. You're not my boss, because my only purpose is in protecting the time gem. I'm sworn to do that. And Stark is, and he wants to go back to Earth, and Stark is, we can't go back to Earth. You saw what happened there. We have to take the fight to Titan. We have to take the fight to Thanos' homeworld. And so, yeah, that was a very good scene. And like Doctor Strange goes, you know, if it's your life or Spider-Man's life, I'm protecting the time gem. You know, you guys are out of luck. And then, yeah, it's just, Doctor Strange just, this is a much better movie for him than like how he did in his own movie. Like, I thought there's a lot of good in that movie, but the Dread Doorman, I mean, he's in the comic books, he's always going to alternate dimensions and stuff. And in the movie, I guess they had all of that sort of Inception type, but the Inception special effects really didn't make up for a lack of a story, in my opinion. And I would have liked to have seen something with Dread Dormammu, you know, just maybe fighting him in, I don't know, that the movie just was a disappointment to me, and I think he is much better used here. And there was none of the sling rings. Well, maybe they were using sling rings. They were doing stuff with the things, but they never referenced those stupid sling rings, because if you're a wizard, you don't need a ring. I'm sorry. You don't. You just, how can you do all of this stuff and need a piece of technology or something to do it if you're the master of the mystic arts? Doesn't make any sense in my mind. Marvel is afraid of magic. Don't be afraid of magic. Just let magic be magic. And, it's like nobody spends the Harry Potter movies talking about how magic is stupid. Just let there be magic in the Marvel Cinematic Universe like there is in the comic book. And if you want to say it's highly advanced science, that's great, but you don't have to try to make it fit that way, because presumably everybody in the seats aren't that advanced that we could understand it anyways, and we'll just accept it as magic. I'm sorry, I got lost in a tangent. So then we also have a theme of sacrifice, because again, this is spoilers. In order to get the Soul Stone, now Gamora knows where the Soul Stone is, and she wants Peter to kill her if Thanos gets a hold of her. And Thanos already has the Reality Stone, and I forget what other stone, but when Thanos is holding Gamora, he's kind of like the father. He's like, so you're the guy who's interested in my daughter. She asked you to kill her. Now kill her. And he doesn't want to, but then he finally pulls the trigger and Thanos turns the gun into bubbles, which he does that again with another weapon. I thought that was kind of an interesting, I don't know exactly what the symbolism is there, but it was interesting to me that he just, why bubbles? Why is Thanos, of all people, turning, why not just like have it crumble to dust? But no, he makes it, Peter pulls the trigger and bubbles come out, and then the whole gun turns into like soap bubbles, like those things you blew when you were kids, or you've got kids now, you probably just bought them some for Easter a little while ago, a month ago. So I found that interesting. And so Gamora isn't going to tell where the Soul Stone is, but then Nebula had sneaked aboard Thanos' ship and tried to kill him, and he has her rigged up in this torture. And she's mostly machine now, so he's using his gauntlet to stretch her out and stuff like that, and like bring her apart and stuff. And yeah, it's one of the more disturbing scenes in the movie. And so that gets Gamora to take him to, I think the planet was called Vimir. And we meet the Red Skull there, the first time we've seen Red Skull since the first movie. And in this case, he's kind of totally beaten. He said, if you want the Soul Stone, it's going to cost you. You're going to have to sacrifice. It cost me. And all I can do now is show people where it is. And I can never have it myself. And so he has to sacrifice something he loves. And we did have a lot of scenes building up that Thanos actually loves Gamora as his daughter. He truly loves her. And, but she doesn't believe that. So she just starts laughing. It's like, you don't love anything. And, this goes back to like the Nibelungenlied, which is an old Germanic mythology that Wagner uses in his Ring Cycle. Like, I can't remember the name of the dwarf, but the dwarf in Das Rheingold, if he wants the Rheingold, he has to disavow love. He has to swear never to love again. And that's what's going on here. This is directly taken from that. In fact, I can't remember. I think it might have been the planet where Thor gets an axe made. That might have been something very close to Nibelungenlied. But at any rate, so he sacrifices her. And what she does is, when she was a little girl, he gave her this knife and says it's perfectly balanced. And, and so like when she first meets him, she tries to kill him with it. But of course, he's got the Reality Stone, so he's able to like become, change reality and be back alive again. So she takes the knife back from him and tries to kill herself, but then again, he turns it into bubbles. And again, to me, that's just so interesting. I'm going to have to look to see why he would turn it into bubbles. I mean, can you think of a reason? I can't. In the comic books, like the ones we looked at the other day, he's just kind of a grumpy guy, and he calls everybody worm, and even people who are working for him. So so yeah, in this movie, he has almost a fun side to him, but you have to remember he is completely evil. He's completely insane, and he's got these demonic creatures working for him. Um, and so so yeah, and then we also deal with sacrifice. So like he kills her, and then he gets the soul stone, and he puts it in. I wondered if we would see Adam Warlock in here. We don't. He puts it in the gauntlet, um, and so yeah, there we've got the sacrifice there, and then we have Vision and Scarlet Witch. Now, when we see them, we know he's got the which stone is his? I forget. Anyways, he's got the stone that kind of activates him. And it came out of that thing that Loki had, that spear thing. And yeah, the thing that could control people's minds. Excuse me. So they're stealing away time, Scarlet Witch and Vision, to see if they can make a relationship work. And it is kind of working. And Paul Bettany, you see him as Paul Bettany in this movie for a little while. He's kind of taken on like a human form. And, you kind of wonder why he never did that in the comic books. He turned all white at one point, and then he turned back to the red and green, but he never looked like, regular human. And I'm not sure why he's never thought of that in the comic books. Anyway, so like their sacrifices, like he's saying, Scarlet Witch apparently has the ability with her power to destroy his stone, and they take him to Wakanda. And you've got this whole thing. It's like he's willing to sacrifice himself because all of his it animates him in some way. But at Wakanda, what's her name, T'Challa's sister says, we can like reroute his neurons or whatever, so that then we could take out the stone, and there should be enough of him left to be the real Vision. But then you got the demonic attack, and eventually both Scarlet Witch and Vision have to get into the fight. And Scarlet Witch, again, it's a repeat of the scene between Peter and Gamora, and she's using her hex power, and then Thanos. No, it's not Thanos. Is it Thanos? Yes, Thanos is on Earth at this point, having just gotten the Soul Stone, and she destroys him. And I think he hasn't gotten. Has he gotten? Yes, this is after he gets a Time Stone. So like he goes and he fights. So yeah, again, like I'm looking for the themes. I'm not necessarily looking for a recap. So like she does it as much as it hurts. And I do wonder if she wasn't emotionally attached, if she could have destroyed his Soul Stone a lot faster. But she's able, Scarlet Witch is able to hold Thanos off for a little while, and she does actually destroy the Soul Stone. She kills Vision, but then at this point, Thanos has the Time Stone, and he's able to go back in time, and he resurrects Vision and with the stone intact, and then takes it, and then he's dead. And yeah, so it was the movie had some intense themes, and I think Thor could have used this a little more. It could have used a little more seriousness. As fun of a movie as it was, I think it lacked some pathos. And then, that's interesting. The Valkyrie was what wasn't in this movie. I kind of wondered where Korg, and I thought he might be here, especially, I'm not sure. Like Thanos must have killed Korg and the Valkyrie, I guess, everybody who is on there. And Loki dies in here. So, Gamora dies in here. And then after Thanos gets all the stone, he starts like, his idea is like, the way he has to go from planet to planet and kill half the population is very, it's time consuming, and it's very cruel. So, again, I'm telling you, like in his mind, he's doing good. And he says, if I got all of the Infinity Stones, I could just go like this and reduce the population of the galaxy. I'm not clear if he's doing this on a universal scale or just on the galactic scale. I can make the population half. Now, in the comic books, his motivation was pleasing the love of his life, which was Mistress Death or Lady Death, and she wanted him to reduce half the population as a sign of devotion, but she didn't want him to do it like that. She wanted him to put some effort into it. So she got kind of angry and disgusted and repulsed by him, even though there can never really be much of a relationship between the two. Yeah, so those seem to be the major themes: is what do you have to sacrifice? Sacrificing something you love. Scarlet Witch has to sacrifice Vision. Thanos has to sacrifice Gamora. Um, let's see. Yeah, Peter does too. Peter is supposed to kill Gamora, and it's just Thanos. He really doesn't want to do it, but Thanos causes that to happen. The very disturbing scene there too. It's like I thought Drax and what's her name, the antenna-haired girl, Mantis, was going to die in that scene too. They just get totally messed up, but then they somehow come back together, and I guess it's Thanos showing mercy. I don't know, but yeah, there's a lot of emotion in this movie, and then they attack on Wakanda. Yeah, very demonic, very very much like you've got these creatures that are kind of eyeless. I vaguely remember them from the comic books, and do I remember them from Infinity, or do I remember them from some other story? At any rate, they, to me, it's like one thing I thought is like, would Black Panther have been a better movie after this movie? Like, we already got more or less T'Challa's origin in Civil War. I don't really think we needed to see Wakanda prior to this movie. And it's a good movie. It's a great movie, but it might have been better to like deal with Black Panther's first movie rebuilding Wakanda after this. I don't know. That's just I kind of just wondered that. Because Black Panther was a wonderful time, very James Bondy. I like the first half better. That was the other thing about this movie I thought is like, oh wow, they've moved to the third act fight like right at the beginning, because within the first 10 minutes we have a huge fight going on in New York. Yeah, and you also had like Steve Rogers and Tony Stark still not being friends, and Tony has this old flip phone to contact Steve, and he doesn't do it. Eventually, like the Hulk does. Well, not the Hulk, David Banner. We only get the Hulk at the very beginning of the movie when he attacks Thanos and almost gets killed. And then every time Banner tries to Hulk out, Hulk refuses. So I thought that was kind of interesting too, and we don't really know why. So that presumably will be answered in part 2. So let's see. Our major themes are balance, madness, demonic invasions, and sacrifice. And the price of sacrifice. So Thanos sacrifices a lot, and the movie pretty much ends. It reminded me a lot of the end of Infinity Gauntlet. Although in Infinity Gauntlet he is defeated, and Adam Warlock is telling him the reason is because you don't really believe in yourself. You don't really believe you can be this cosmic God entity. There's like something in your psychology that will always come up and defeat you no matter what plan you get. And so Thanos decides to retire and be a farmer. And he is a farmer until Infinity War, and he's kind of sucked into that. And in that case, that story is less about Thanos and like Adam Warlock and his evil self from the future, who I forget his name right now. But I thought that was a pretty good story too. And I will be rereading it again in my box set once I start digging into that, which maybe soon. So I think I've rambled on enough. I think I haven't come to any conclusion. I'm still kind of thinking on it. And let me know what you thought of the movie. Did you get any major revelations into Thanos' character? I found him more likable than in the comic book. But also totally evil and repulsive, and I certainly wouldn't trust him. You know, I kind of think his idea of himself as a balancer is a lie, and I think at some level he knows it's a lie, and I'm pretty sure something will happen. Now, at the end of this movie, there is so yeah, what happens is Thanos gets all the stones, and he does, like, you see lots of people die. Like, it seemed like way more than 50% of the superheroes died. It was like almost shocking, the carnage. And of course, they don't die like in a gross manner, but they just kind of um, turn into ashes. They kind of melt away into like these little flakes. And that happened to Spider-Man. It happened to let's see, did it happen to Falcon? I forget if it happened to Falcon or War Machine. It happens, yeah, at the very end of the movie. You have, there's only one after credit scene, and it's after all the credits, and we have Nick Fury, and he's trying to activate that other secret organization that's like SHIELD, only it's planetary, and I can't remember their names for the life of me. It just showed their logo. I guess I could have looked that up before I started. And apparently, yeah, so like that's pretty much it for the movie itself. The last thing I will say about the movie is I did go to Rotten Tomatoes, and apparently, according to them, it's had like a record weekend. I should go to Box Office Mojo real quick. Let me see here. Box Office Mojo. So they are saying Avengers Infinity War topped $250 million this weekend. Excuse me. It's very, and I think it deserves it. I think like so much happens in this movie. I felt like I could take a week off and watch this movie every day. The other thing I did is, I guess I'm not quite done yet, is I went to our IMAX theater. Now, the last time I've been to the IMAX, I think, was for Age of Ultron. I'm about to cough. And then like we just had a movie theater, like it moved to about 2 minutes away. Because I live in Madison, Wisconsin, and the people here are anti-business and anti-tax, and like the movie theater, I think it's a Marcus, they wanted to upgrade, but the local government kept saying, well, you need this, you need this, you need this. And every time the business would capitulate, they wanted more. You never give in to a liberal, never. They are always they're going to suck you dry. You can't give in to them. Even if you're wrong, you can't admit it. So, that's just how it is. It's like a Chinese finger trap. The best thing to do is to like not be around them if you can manage it. So anyways, they ended up moving to another city, it's about a 2-minute longer drive. And they have a Marcus Super Screen, which I don't think it's as good as the IMAX. I've seen some movies there. I saw the Captain America Civil War movie on that screen. And, it's okay, but I think it might even be the screen is big enough. It's just the way the theater is. I don't know. And when I go to it just seems like so much bigger when I'm at the IMAX. And the 3D for this, I think 3D has been great in just about every Marvel movie I've seen. But like, this one stuff, I was in seat F13, which is just about in the center. I was surprised I got this seat because I didn't get my tickets until yesterday. Did I get them yesterday or did I get it Friday? I forget. But yeah, and so like one little seat, like all the other seats are taken. And so I got F13, and like, something blows up and a piece of debris comes at me and I'm jumping because I thought the 3D was really excellent. Yeah, and I think just on the IMAX screen, like when they're starting the movie, they do this countdown, and the 3D on that is pretty awesome. Now, I know some people hate 3D. I love it. I absolutely love it. And Yeah, this was very good 3D. I really enjoyed the 3D experience, and I enjoy the IMAX screen. So I think I gotta give up on the Marcus, and unless I'm going with friends who don't like 3D, I'd much prefer seeing a movie like this in IMAX. It's so superior, so superior. Okay, so like I think the last thing I'm going to do, that's the end of my Infinity War talk. Might I might post my previous video if it's good enough after I listen to it. I might not. This might be enough. I just wanted to go through some of the books I got today. Like I was out book hunting. I found this. I've got another copy of this. I think I've got the paperback of this. So this is Vernon Howard. He's a very good writer, and this is called The Mystic Path to Cosmic Power. And so even though I've already got it, I don't have the hardcover, and I just thought this silver cover. Now, I assume there's a dust jacket for this, and I didn't have, they didn't have the dust jacket, but maybe not because, you've got, do I have it upside down? No, it's right side up. So yeah, so I thought this was really cool. This is a very good book if you're into that sort of thing. I found this book on astrology, and the reason I got this book was, let me just look once. The main reason I got it is it was published by Llewellyn in the 60s, but the book was originally published in 1935, then it was reissued in 37. It was copyrighted 1947, reprinted in 49, copyright 1962 by Llewellyn Publications. And then this book was published in 68 or 69, I guess. So anyways, I didn't know Llewellyn went back that long. I guess maybe I did know at some point. I'm not a big fan of their books at this point, but this book is currently out of print. And when I looked it up on Amazon, some people were saying this book just made astrology very easy to understand. And so, it's an old book. I love old books. Then I found this other Parker edition. This one is called Psychic Phenomena, Revelations, and Experiences. So unlike a lot of my other books, this isn't a how-to book. At least it doesn't look like one. But this also got very high reviews when I looked it up on Amazon. And for a few dollars, I can get I really like Parker books. So that's, other than comic books right now, that's what I'm collecting is these Parker occult library books from the 60s, 70s, and I guess they published into the 80s. I'm not sure when they went out of business, but very cool, very cool. So, well, I will probably read something tomorrow. I got the question loaded up in my folder I take to work, and I'm going to close it out here. Talk to you guys later. Have a super comic fun time.